Animals don't eat them. Yeah, they're good. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's our nemesis. Are we on? Oh, good. Okay, so we are live. Sorry, we got to come back to those folks online. We're glad you all are tuned in. Front row seat right here. Today's garden class is on evergreens that bloom early. So I'm going to focus on that. And there's a whole series of them that are unique to this elevation. You just don't see them everywhere else in the country. They're unique to here. And I broke it down into 4 segments: native, shade-loving, flowery kind of things, and then blistering hot, show me the wind, sun location. So four areas. And they're all kind of, you'll see them now. You can plant them now. The indication that you can plant now, the season's here, the box elder bugs are out. It's a little tiny black bug. It's got orange stripes on it. They're always one of the first ones. You kind of know nature's coming alive. So they're out when your plants are starting to go. So you're starting to see everything activate. Your daffodils, or at least mine, are up about 6-7 inches. The question that a lot of new folks go is, should I be worried for them if it gets cold again? No, they know what to do. They bloom consistently every spring. They always start in March with a bloom. So in a couple of weeks, they'll be in full color. Forsythia will be ready for that. Flowering jasmine, quince, just kind of, it's a rotation that happens right down the line. And so planting wise, it's pretty nice planting right now. You had that snowstorm 10 days ago or so. The snow's melted. Shovel goes in the ground like butter. It's pretty nice. The ground didn't freeze. It just got easier to work. Whereas before that, I planted a couple Arizona cypress before that storm, and it was like digging through a rock. Just, you couldn't get the pick sharp enough, the digging bar sharp enough. You couldn't jump on the new shovel heavy enough. So it should be easier planting now. I think you're good to go for your evergreen stuff and your early spring planting things. You're good to go. I know we got a little system coming through like November or Wednesday. A little cold. Yeah, I've been unloading semis for a couple of days. These things should be fine in the cold. You're okay. They've got enough antifreeze in them. So they're zone 7 plants or lower. So you're zone 7. You folks in Prescott Valley, you're special. You're different. But you're still just a zone 7. Just 7. We're all just zone 7. Like Chino Valley, 7. Paulton, 7. You folks tuned in from Sedona, Camp Verde, Jerome, Cottonwood. Zone 7. Cornville, you guys rock it. Zone 7. We're zone 7. You might flirt a little bit with zone 8. What that is, an indication of how much antifreeze do the plants have in their structure before they freeze. So zone 7 plants can go down to 10 degrees, maybe a little bit colder before they start to be affected. So you should be fine. Be careful of zone 9, 10, 11, 12 plants. Those are the box store. I've got 50 stores, and send 40 of those to every one of my stores, and they don't look at the different elevations. But here at Waters Garden Center, we only sell plants that are right for here. So you'll find you're good to go with these. So as we go through them, I'll just kind of share which ones, where they go, and how you plant them. I did go out in my yard. Tomorrow I will be gardening. This is a native ceanothus. You'll find this just walking around the neighborhood, walking out in the forest. You'll see this plant. It's up about this tall. I kind of keep it this size. It's an evergreen native. But you'll notice I want to pass this around. It's got scale on it. I went, whoa, my gosh. I need to take this to the students today, show them what's going on. This is pretty cool. You see all the little bumps right here. That's a bug that is piercing the stem and sucking the plant dry. If I don't treat this, it will affect, if not kill, the plant. So it also gets on, this one's unique to ceanothus. It's a bigger scale. You see a big bubble. There's another one just like this. It gets on pinyon pines. You'll see a needle on the pinyon pine. You see a little dot. You can't really see as pronounced bubble on there, but you'll see a dot. It's a tinier type of scale, but it does the exact same thing. It sucks the plant dry. If you see that, you need to spray it. I'll just pass this around. It's not alive. It's fine. If you don't like it, just say pass and go to your neighbors over there. But it's an insect. I'm going to treat that tomorrow. I'm going to spray the scale with horticultural oil. So it's an organic spray. It coats the scale, coats the outer armor, and the plant likes it, but the bug suffocates. So I can affect the bug without the plant. Makes the plant look kind of shiny. It's an easy organic. I do go all marine on things, so I don't mess around. So I'm going to double down. I'm going to also put this is a tree and shrubs drench. It's a systemic. The plant will actually absorb from the inside out, and this will protect me for the next year. The oil will take out the bugs that are right there right now, but there's some others in the ground. I missed one. This is going to protect it for the long haul. So I'm going to do two things for mine. This is an important plant. It's over by the pond. I don't want to lose it. And so I go, for things that are important, I go extra. And then I'll fertilize it, make sure it grows a little bit extra. That's way overkill for natives, but if you want them to look luscious and full, that's how you do it. Okay, so that's kind of just because I saw an insect. Another thing, just while we're seeing things right now, when you get done with that, just make sure it passes over this way to these folks. So they want to make sure you don't feel left out. I'm sorry, I should have showed you that up close. When it comes back this way, make sure I show it to those folks sitting in their jammies behind their computer on their phone. The other thing that I'm doing right now is preventing weeds. Now, this is kind of off topic, but it's very appropriate for right now. There's two things I despise about gardening, just absolutely, it's laborious. We were kicked out of the Garden of Eden and we were given two things. Now you have to water everything. I hate watering. That's why humans created computers to run irrigation systems. And I despise weeding. That's the worst job ever. And so I don't want to do that. And so I've got fabrics down, I got mulch, I got all the stuff. But I'm also right now putting weed and grass stopper down. This will eliminate 90% or more of all your weeding issues. Most of our weeds, because we live in a windy area, the weeds are blown in on us or they're tumbled in on us. And so you're always going to have this pressure of weeds coming at you, even though you got them cleaned up. They're always going to be coming at you because of the wind that happens. This keeps the seed from germinating. No seed, no germination, no weeds. Super, super easy to use. A bag covers like 5,000 square feet. I just put it in my handheld spreader and I just go, die weeds, die. Just die. Don't even try. I put it over the rock. I put it around my roses. I put it around where things are. I mean, rock lawns are the greatest thing ever, but one weed in a rock lawn, you notice that. It's terrible. And I know you got fabric down, but there's dust and stuff underneath where the seed get in there and they still come up at you. This just takes the edge off. So it'll take out most of your weeding. I do it twice a year. I do it right now. And I do it again right before the monsoon rains. So the end of June, first part of July, that's when your horehound, your goat head, your tumbleweeds, that's when the summer things come up. The spring, late winter, early spring things are coming up now. Already dandelions are this big, especially big ones. So that you gotta and they're only gonna get worse. Now they've got lots of moisture and the weather's nice. So everything's gonna grow fast right now. So you're seeing things erupt with new growth. Dandelions are growing and daffodils are growing. Everything is growing right now. Including, let's start. Okay, I've got 3 handouts for you. Let me get rid of that. So I've got all the plants we're going to mention today. There's a list. It's on our website. I wrote an article last year. I just said, here it is. So if you're a note taker and you happen to miss a note, it's going to be in your inbox here this afternoon. Okay, so just take a breath. It'll be okay. You're going to have all the notes. I wrote a book called The Low Maintenance Landscape. It's a lot of lists. It's lots of here's the plant, here's the native plants, here's when to prune, here's how to fertilize, here's how to have a low maintenance landscape, including weed and grass stoppers mentioned in that. And it's for here. It's not just regurgitated from Google. You don't know if it's true or not. It's actually for us for here. Okay. It's in a digital form. It's like 50 pages. I don't have it in print form. But you can read on your iPad. It's PDF. You can print it out yourself. And then how to fertilize. It is time. It is super important to fertilize right now. We'll touch on that. But I thought I'd send you those 3 things. If you want a copy of that, put your email down on there and I will personally email you those 3 things this afternoon, as soon as I get a break, okay? It's only for you all. It's not for everyone on our list. If you didn't come to the class, you don't care about these topics. It's just for you all. So if you're already part of our garden club and you get my weekly newsletter and that kind of stuff, put your name down because you won't get it otherwise, okay? Just so you know. And also, if you could, some of you, and you know who you are, your handwriting's horrible. Please just take a moment and make it a little easier for me to read your interpretation of what an A is, or a 6 is, or a P, or a B, or a... Just let me know. It makes it easier for me. I'll try to interpret best I can. Plus, I love all your names. Some of you gardeners, Garden Gal 96 at gmail.com. I love to see all the email names. So anyway, okay. Let's go down here. Natives. Oh, yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. So the scale, you all missed that. And I don't know if this will pick up on camera. You let me know, Mackenzie, if that's actually, can you see these little nodules there? That's the bug that is sucking. I don't know if that'll bleed or not. Nah, not. But anyway, scale are bad. They should die. Kill them, okay? Let's start with natives. This is one you'll find out in the forest. You're hiking around. This is a shrub about head high or so. It's evergreen. You can tell it's an Elaeagnus. Think the name Ellie and Agnes, put them together. That's a Latin name. Or silverberry is the common name. But it's got a green, silvery, blue, I don't know, leaf cover, and then on the back it's white. This is a pretty common theme for natives. They many times have a white backing. This is an efficiency thing, so they don't perspire on the back of their leaves, only on the front. So where they get photosynthesis, and then where they're not seeing sun, they just go, I'm not going to evaporate there. Nice evergreen shrub. This one blooms, but you don't see the flower per se. I'm walking through the forest, and I smell something in March and April, and I go, oh, that's a silverberry. I got this. This plant has one of the most fragrant, sweet smells you'll ever have, and way hardier than a red tip photinia, some of these other ornamental types of things. Deer don't eat this, javelina don't bother it. Gets evergreen. I usually fertilize it until it gets up to size. I'll water it when I think about it, up to size, and then it gets cut off of all care. It stays because it's a true native. And so Elaeagnus is a great little plant, not for flowers per se, but for the fragrance and the evergreen thing. So a good hedge plant. Of course, the number one that everyone knows, and look, it's starting to bloom. You can tell it's spring, starting to bloom. Can you guys see that? It's got a bell-shaped flower. It's a pollinator. This is manzanita. So we do sell the Howard McMinn manzanita. That's the big boy. But many of the big ones are too big for a lot of yards. So we've got two smaller size, actually 3 smaller sizes: Panchito, Chieftain, and Kinnick or Bearberry. Bearberry is the low-growing ground cover. Only gets this tall and spreads. But again, same red bark, same flower, same foliage. This is Panchito. It gets about this tall. Nice, full, thick, shapely. Doesn't take any care. In fact, if you're planting manzanita, I would say don't put it on the irrigation. Water it by hand. Because if you're going to kill this personal experience, it's from overwatering. So this thing needs to breathe at the roots. It'd rather be dry than to be wet. But a nice evergreen plant. It is a pollinator. The bees came out after that last storm system, and they were hungry. They're foraging. In fact, anything that's in bloom right now, they're foraging on those plants. You'll see just anything with flowers, they're on them right now because they're hungry. They're almost starving. So they're shooting the pollen, taking it back to the nest, to the hive, so she can make more bees. Manzanita. This is one that is starting to bloom. Obviously, here in my own yard, looks the same. This is a native you'll see growing out in the forest. Usually it's a low-growing one, about just below knee-high, kind of maybe 8-10 inches tall. It's called Oregon grape or Mahonia, but Oregon grape holly because it's got a holly leaf to it. And so this will take shade, it'll take sun, animals don't eat it. Birds love the grape-sized fruit, Oregon grape holly, because it puts an edible fruit on. You'll never get any of them because the birds love them. So it will attract more birds for you. But it just does this. In the winter, it gets kind of a red hue or burgundy hue to it. And then as we get green, as we get warmer, as the days get longer, which we're already sensing that, right? Days are starting to feel like it's almost twilight at 7 o'clock at night. That's awesome. Finally, I hate dark. I like light. I live in Arizona. I want light sun. I want sun 24/7 if I could. Anyway, this will green right up, and it'll be this kind of color. And then in the new growth comes out a tinge red, and then the winter color is a tinge red. We have standard Mahonia, gets up this tall. Compact Mahonia gets this tall. And ground cover Mahonia gets this tall. So there's 3 sizes that you'll find. All of them look the same. All of them bloom the same. Just what height do you like? That's the difference. True native. This is another one you'll see out in the forest. In fact, these 2 guys usually go together. These 3 you'll see growing this. In fact, this one you'll see growing at the same time. These 3 you see growing together in the same kind of chaparral. If you go towards Skull Valley, hillside out towards Dewey, Mayer, you'll see these 3 guys all over the place. This is gray leaf cotoneaster. It's an evergreen about this tall, nice ball shaped. Gets a white flower in spring, and then it has these red berries that it holds right through winter. Again, it's a food source for birds, that kind of stuff. Nice little evergreen. Cotoneaster does really well. We'll mention another one that's not native, that's more for full sun, that gets bigger. I'll show you that in a second. But cotoneaster, or cotton Easter is how you spell it. Whenever you see that name, you know you got a good plant. It's going to be evergreen. Animals don't eat it. It's just a tough plant for here. This one I brought, not that it blooms in spring. Actually, it only blooms every 100 years. That's the name century plant. The rumor is it blooms every 100 years. Not really. In your backyard, mine bloom about every 20 years or so. So it'll bloom longer, sooner, faster, if it's in an area where it gets more nutrients, food, that kind of stuff. Also, another name is artichoke agave, because it looks like a gigantic artichoke when it gets fuller. This will get up about knee high, maybe a little bit more. And this is the plant where you see the flower growing almost like a foot a day. It just grows to like 12-foot tall flower. It's magnificent. And then the mother plant will actually die. The pups underneath will actually grow in her place. And the way these are programmed, she's trying to crawl up and down the mountainside. So you see these at the top of the Bradshaws, Minguses. You see these in very cold areas, kind of all over the place in clusters. What she's doing is she's going up and putting a seed up here. And then when she finally falls over, 12 feet over here, boom, she'll seed over there, and her pups will keep going over here. So that's how they kind of traipse across the native landscape. Okay? Natives. I think that's all the natives, or the few that I brought. There's more than that, and you'll have the whole list here shortly. If you put your name on that email list, you will have the entire list by this afternoon. Hopefully. If not tomorrow, for sure. A lot of folks don't realize that we can grow rhododendrons here. This is the shade section, the shadier areas. So rhodies will actually take some sun, but because of our elevation, they don't like that midday, June, 10 to 2, it's 95, 100 degrees. They don't like that. But they'll take the morning sun, they'll take the afternoon sun. They just don't want to be that midday in the summer. In the winter, we've got pretty kind sun. It doesn't matter. It's this time of year. And each one of these, something's going on. I don't know if you can pick that up on camera or not, but firefighters are going by. Thank you, first responders. You guys are awesome. These are all the flowers. So this is like gardener's candy. So once they go into bloom, once they're in bloom, they're on a cart and they're sold. And I take the money to the bank. So just kind of, this is just a gardener's like candy. They can't resist them. And so this is one you want to buy before they bloom, so you can get them in the ground and then enjoy the flower. First of all, you get it, and then it blooms longer in your yard rather than taking it home when it's in bloom and it has more risk of transplant shock, when that happens. So again, rhodies, there's a lot of different colors, sizes. Pick the one you like, go for it. One that goes with this, I would say no more than 6 hours of sun. Just shade, okay? Take some, so east side, fine. That midday, when you're getting 8, 9, 10, 12 hours of sun, it'll live. The tag says grows in full sun. You're from the Midwest. Yeah, you used to grow it in full sun. That's how we did it in Minnesota. You're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. This is the elevation is what gets it sometimes. That sun is more intense, and so it can burn back. So it'll live in full sun. It'll just burn back at the tips. It'll be an ugly plant. You want to put it in more shaded areas. Same with azaleas, are companion plants. Rhodies, azaleas go in the same garden. So if you got a north side flower bed in containers, beautiful underneath that patio. It's evergreens, got this fluorescent colored flowers that are just covered. The whole thing will be covered with flowers. So a great little plant for shade. It takes our climate really well. And the reason being, they've got these real waxy leaves. So the wax, rhodies, all these guys have waxy leaves, which means they don't perspire very easily. So they take our dryness really well. It's the sun they don't like as much. Okay. I wish I could have brought these to you in color, but they're budding up. They're not quite there. So these are two that, this is probably the most famous East Coast plant. This is holly. They do really well here in the more shaded areas. I know you in Virginia, you grow it in full sun, but here you want to have some more shade in that midday shade. It'll take morning sun. It's amazing how I've had grown this on the west side of my house. West sun can be a bit hot, but it thrived. But it had shade from the house all the way until about 2 or 3 o'clock, and all of a sudden it got a bunch of sun, and it was happy as could be, bloomed like crazy. This is called magic berry holly. So holly is kind of a tricky thing. Male and female, they need pollinators to be able to put the flowers and berries on. And generally speaking, the male hollies are kind of scraggly and ugly looking things. You kind of tuck them back over there so no one sees them. You put all the females up here at the front row of the house. Here we've bred the male and the female in the same plant. We actually grafted the male and the female. So now you need one plant. No ugly plants here at Waters Garden Center. Just pretty ones. And so now you don't need that extra male over here to pollinate all the females. It's all in one. And it's a pretty plant. Magic berry holly. This is goshiki holly. Goshiki in Japanese is 5-colored holly because it'll actually throughout the season get 5 colors. So the new growth comes out with a pinky, then a burgundy, then this creamy, then this blue, then this green. It's got this very striking, interesting change or character to it throughout the growing season. I have personally had this in a container in my front yard. Javelina are my nemesis. I've got electric fence. I have pop-up scarecrows. I've got at night, I don't know, I'm trying to keep them away. I want them at your house, not at my house. And they have personally left this alone. They just don't go after it. So it looks kind of delicious, but it's got a thorny kind of, it's got a texture I think they don't like. And again, it's kind of waxy. So it's very efficient on perspiration. Doesn't use as much water as some other things. Okay, in containers, raised beds, in the ground, it doesn't matter. And this is how it's going to look in the winter. Okay, new growth will happen here in about 2-3 weeks. And then that new growth will start, some heavy buds on this right now. We'll come out with this kind of orangey pink to burgundy kind of colors. That's the name 5-colored holly, goshiki. Gotta love the Japanese. Brilliant gardeners. Okay, that's natives, shade lovers, more flowery kind of things. So perennial kind of stuff. And we'll start with this one. A lot of folks don't know we can grow this. This is an amazing plant. Probably one of the most, you see, it's just starting to bloom here. This has been budded up for all winter. It's kind of a tease. I'm gonna bloom, I'm gonna bloom. It's in November, I'm gonna bloom. It's December, I'm gonna bloom. January, I'm gonna bloom. Finally, in March, it starts to bloom. This is lily of the valley. Okay, it's an evergreen shrub, perennial. This is fully mature. It'll get fuller It's about this tall, and then it loads up with these flowers in the spring. Super fragrant. I mean, put it under your patio where you're going to watch a sunset in March and April. You're going to smell this one. It's delicious. Evergreen, again, this one doesn't like the sun so much. So this is one you want to put out there in more shaded areas. It'll take some sun, but not direct sun. It'll bloom a lot longer in full shade. It'll just be nonstop blooms in more shaded areas. A companion plant with this is one we were seeing, just talking about a little bit earlier. These are Lenten roses. Again, this is an evergreen, so it'll get about this tall. Has these flowers that bloom on top of it, and it just blooms an amazing long time in the shade. The more shade, the longer the blooms stay on the flower, on the perennial. But very few perennials are evergreen. Usually perennials hibernate underneath ground, and they're camped out. They're resting underneath the ground. This guy goes, I don't need a rest. I'll just stay right here, and I'll probably keep blooming in the winter and throughout the spring. It's an amazingly long bloom cycle. Comes in 3 or 4 different colors. I just brought these 2 because they go with this. This is a taller thing. This is a shorter thing. And they're just companion plants with each other. Okay. Again, super efficient on water use. Great in containers. Both of these are great in containers, or a raised bed, or what's that? This gets this big, and these get probably just short of knee high, something like that, kind of this tall. So much shorter than, it'll be half the size of the lily of the valley. The Lenten roses, or hellebores, or how you see it written up. Your grandparents called it Lenten rose. We now call it hellebores. This is a weed. Be careful where you put this. It's an evergreen ground cover. It's called vinca or periwinkle. It's got a lot of different names around the country. Put this where it gets left out. So put it right where the irrigation just misses it. Put it next to the driveway where you can run over it with the truck to keep it in check. This is going to take over any bed you put it into. So don't put it in the middle of your flower bed or 2, 3, 4, 5 years. This is all that will be there. Great at choking out weeds. Nothing competes with this. I use this a lot on my raised beds. At the front edge, you got these pavers. You want it to spill out over the edge and kind of soften up all that block. Or a big pot. I'll put it at the front edge of a big pot, and I'll put like this would look fantastic. This looks really good. Don't put this as your showpiece, and then this at the edge, and it spills out over the edge, and it blooms like this a long time. I'll sell, I think, 3 different colors. So purple is kind of the common one, and it was in bloom right now, so I thought I'll just show off. They're coming for blooms. I'll show them blooms. But there's white, and I think there's a burgundy one that goes down there. So we're coming out with new varieties. Again, just warning, don't put it in the middle. Put it off to the edge, or it creeps. It has these long tendrils, then it roots here, and it just keeps going. There's almost no way to stop it. So just be aware. A great plant. You can't kill this thing. Okay. I brought this not because it's evergreen, because look, it's proof that spring, there is life. This is a peony. Last week it was not even showing anything. A week later, look at it. So peonies are kind of a cue. If you want to know how close we are to spring, I just look at nature. Look at the bugs. Look at the foxtails that are coming up. Look at the daffodils that are coming. Look at the peonies that are growing. Oh, there's no holding them back now. It's here. Boom. And so this is an English peony. We've also got Ito peonies down there. That's where you hybridise. You put a tree peony, you graft it onto you take an English peony, you graft it onto a tree peony, and you get this ginormous English peony, basically, with flowers that are as big as your hand. Very fragrant and exotic colors. So there's a lot of colors down there. Peonies, don't wait, because I will run out of these. I know they look ugly. There's you're buying a bucket of dirt, but it's old enough to bloom this year. So peonies have to be at least 2 to 3 years old before they're old enough to bloom. So we've had these. This is probably a 3-year-old peony. The Itos are 5 to 6, 7 years old, the big ones. And so they're at the farm for a lot of, and they need to be really mature before they're old enough to form a flower. If you're just planting the root, it's got a real fleshy root, it'll take a couple of years before it actually blooms, okay? A little mistake I've made. I'm up in the Eagle Ridge, up at Prescott Lakes area. Heavy, heavy clay soil, heavy clay, doesn't breathe. And so I've killed a few of these by planting them going, I'm a gardener, okay, I can make this grow no matter what, dunk. And then I drown it. These have a very fleshy root to them. And the root tends to, once it starts to rot, it's hard to control. So make sure this breathes. Make sure the roots, make sure you take a little extra time and amend the soil where this is going to be planted. Because where you plant a peony, they're there for 50 years or more. This will be a very ancient plant. These can outlive many of your trees in the yard. So plant it once and done for like the next decades. So make sure it does right. Sun, full shade, it'll grow anywhere. And animals don't eat it. So rabbits, javelina. Not sure about antelope. Antelope are the new variable, but they're kind of like deer. They sort of have the same kind of thing. So we're thinking they'll be the same, but we need some of you to put some of these out in your yards where the antelopes are, out top of the airport and those valley areas, and give us a report back on how they do. Or when I'm making deliveries, I'm driving through neighborhoods. That's how I know. Just in your front yard, and go, wow, that is a spectacular specimen. And I know the animals are roaming around this neighborhood. I go, okay, we got this. You can do the same in your yard. Just walk the neighborhood, because the deer aren't just coming after you. Javelina aren't just in your yard. They're up and down the streets. They're working out the whole neighborhood. And they got a cycle they go through. They just got a route that's kind of come back. And so they're checking things out. So if you see it growing in your neighbor's yard, you know it's going to do good for your yard. A couple herbs I brought. We grow herbs probably better than anywhere else in the country. It's because they like bright sun. They like cool, most of them. And we're so dry, they don't get the diseases that let's say, the Midwest or East Coast get, or the South. They don't get black spot, mildews. They just don't get all the issues. And so you can grow, these are mostly perennials. This is an early bloomer. This is rosemary. Some advice on rosemary. Be careful which ones. It's a huge family of plants. And we have a lot of influence from the deserts. And so the desert varieties don't grow up here. Not all rosemaries grow up here. There's a few of the tall ones, big ones, and there's only 2 of the ground covering ones that are hardy enough, that are zone 7, that will survive the winter through here. This happens to be, I think, Huntington carpet, or which one is this? Huntington carpet. It's a ground cover. This is as tall as it gets, and then you see it's already starting to spread this way. So it just goes out, so it gets this tall and gets this wide. You can use it in the kitchen. It is a culinary rosemary, and it does bloom early. So you'll find this is a pollinator for bees. They'll be all over this blue color because they're hungry when this thing starts to bloom. This is also a real good pollinator to put by your veggie gardens. So a lot of times we have difficulties pollinating squash, eggplants, because the bees aren't quite, they're busy over here. You can woo bees into your gardens just by showing off a couple of these things. They can't resist it. They must come and taste this. And while they're there, they're going to go through all your other flowers in your gardens. Apple trees, fruit trees, just put one nearby. The bees are going to come over and they're going, oh yeah, there's a whole tree here. They'll just kind of pollinate everything while they're there. So it's an easy way to draw bees in. Lavender, we sell a lot of different lavenders. This plant loves growing here as long as you don't water it very much. So it tends to drown if you give it too much. If the roots stay too wet, it'll drown, it gets yellow. But these can last for years and years and years. And a nice evergreen, this mine get about, I don't know, knee-high, ball-shaped. You can count on that blue flower every single spring through summer. It's just a long bloom cycle. Purple, violets. We even got a new one called Ghost. There's a white variety. It's coming out. So lavenders are really good for here. Evergreen, herb, plant, and animals don't eat herbs. They don't like them. Basil a little bit, but all the other herbs, thyme, lavender, oregano, they don't like herbs. So you can plant herbs if you're right there in the wildland interface and javelina are ravaging they might pick it up and toss it back and forth to each other just for fun, but they're not going to eat it. Okay, they're not going to eat it. These are a couple. I'll show these off just because they're so unusual. This one and the Lenten roses, you only see these show up very early spring. So most people don't know what these are because they're shopping at the garden center in the spring season and they've missed the early. This is early spring is how we define it. This is when it's still frosty, but it feels bright out. There's some plants that love growing in that. Most novice gardeners go, oh, I can only shop at the garden center in May. We don't have any of these in May. It's going to be the zinnias, the echinacea. It's going to be all that late spring and summer things. That's the mix that's there. So this is a heath or heather. Kind of go the same way. There's two colors. This is when they bloom. They get up about, I don't know, knee high or so, kind of ball shaped. They'll get much wider than taller. And it's one of the few evergreens. It looks kind of ferny. So if you look deeper down in there, it's got kind of an evergreen fern color, but it's been budded up like this since last November, December. It's been budding, and now it finally just bloomed. I've grown this in containers right out there in Skull Valley. Full sun, it did great. So it takes the wind of Prescott Valley. It's a good, strong grower for here. It looks really pretty in a container. Nice mound. It's like the perfect shape. It just always looks good year-round. So heather, classic alpine kind of plant. Okay. Javelina, leave it alone. Elk. In Skull Valley, we had herds of elk down there. They'd come down from the hill country and they'd take advantage of Kirkland Creek and all the ranch land. They're basically cows with long legs. They'd jump over any fence. They didn't bother them, so they did great. Okay, full sun, blistering hot, give it wind, take a blow dryer to it, then curse at it, kick dirt. Here's the plants, okay? Start with these two. This is for you Californians. We got to get you guys involved. I won't ask for a raise of hands, but I know over half of you are like from California. We love you guys. Good for business. Plus, you're escapees just like the rest of us. So this is Nandina, or it's called heavenly bamboo over there. There's a big one called domestica. It's a big, it's not truly bamboo. It doesn't have that weedy runner effect to it. It's much more defined, but it kind of has a bamboo leaf and had a bamboo stalk to it. We're trying to introduce more shorter ones. This is called Sienna Sunrise or Gulf Stream. What's another one? Harbor Dwarf. There's different sizes, and then there's the standard one. Kind of gets too big most of the time. This one gets up about hip high or so with no maintenance. You never have to prune it. It just gets naturally this big, has a white flower cluster that comes up, and the flower cluster will have red berries to it. So it does have, this is evergreens. This is how it looks in the winter. And then it'll actually get a little bit greener, like a deep, rich green in the summer. The new growth always comes out with this reddish tinge to it. See, this is just starting to push its new growth on. Heavenly bamboo. Again, it looks delicious. I want a little ranch dressing, dip some in it, have some myself. Animals don't eat this. That's why it's so tough. Full sun. In the shade, it will grow in the shade, but it won't have all the color to it. It'll just be more green to it. But this is what you're going to get year-round with a white flower that comes up and the red berries. I grow mine in a big, we've got huge patios. So it's crazy. It's too big. So the patios are as long as the house. And so you got to soften up all this block. So I'm using containers around just to dress it up and soften it. So I use this in a great big oxblood red glazed pot, like big. This thing is already fully mature and it's glorious, even though snow had a foot of snow on it. Had to kind of brush the snow off because it was going, it's so heavy. Oh my gosh. Here, let me help you. So heavenly bamboo. How much water does it take? Does it need? Treat it like your trees. If it's in the yard, once a week, maybe if it's brand new, twice a week. So we'll cover that with if you got my card, I passed a few cards out, we'll cover the back of that. And I think we'll have time to do that. So we'll cover how to water. It's a bit early to water yet, but in 3-4 weeks, we're going to activate the systems and it'll be time. Let's get these three. These are related. And then this one, I'm trying to reintroduce because it's just such a tough little plant. Let me put it over here. This is, come on, stay there. This is pyracantha. Your grandparents called it firethorn because it just has these thorns on them. Like when you prune it, you want to make sure you have good, strong, thick new leather gloves because it's pokey. But things with thorns grow really well here. And so this one grows, this is a big plant. It gets up easily 8, 10 feet. You can keep it down some, so we make hedges out of it. It's so tough that we use it in commercial settings, like in parking lots, up against a wall, where people throw trash and stuff. We use it there where it's just the hardest to grow areas. Pyracantha does really, really well. Gets a white flower in spring, and the flowers turn into berries. As kids, used to pick the berries off and chuck them at each other. Or maybe that's just a guy thing. I don't know. You know, used to have berry fights with pyracantha berries. This gets loaded up all winter long. It'll have orange berries. It's got a lot. It's got flowers. It's got evergreen. It's got berries. It's got something going on year round. So it's a good, strong plant for here. Just have your landscaper prune it instead of you. So, or have good gloves. Pyracantha. Again, treat it like a tree. Once a week, when it's rooted, about once a week is probably good to go. And you could probably skip one of those. So yeah. Yeah. So are there thornless varieties for you folks online? And are there red varieties? That one is a red variety. And there are no thornless pyracantha. Sorry, there's only thorn varieties. I wish we could. If we could breed that out, that would be a magical plant. We're trying to figure it out. Just there's no crossbreeding without thorns. They all have thorns. This one, though, is similar. This is red clusterberry cotoneaster. Again, or cotoneaster is how you spell it, cotoneaster. This is an evergreen. This is a big one. This is related to this native one, this one. These two guys are cousins. This grows natively. This grows out throughout Arizona. This one doesn't, but it thinks it's a native once you put it in the ground. This is a ginormous plant. This one only gets, again, remember hip high? This one gets easily this big, and this, it's a big boy. And it grows fast. So it's evergreen. This is what it looks like in the winter. It's a white flower, clusters of white flowers. Those clusters turn into red berries. That's the name red clusterberry cotoneaster. So it'll be, right now it's got red clusters of berries on it. Even this late winter, it still has berries. It'll shed those or eject those pretty quick as soon as it starts blooming. It'll shed all the berries and start over again. This one, I think, is far better than red tip photinia, which I put my kids through college just by selling red tip photinia. That's the #1 seller. Big, solid evergreen. But that one gets every disease. It gets bugs. I make more money afterwards. I should just give those away because I make money after you're trying to keep them alive because they get all these different issues on them. This one gets none. So if I were planting it myself, I need something big, screening, wind. The headlights from the street are coming right into my living room. I want something to block that. Whatever your situation is, I'd plant this one because the animals don't get it, doesn't get disease. I don't know that it has a bug that gets on it. The birds actually like it because they like the berries. It's just a stronger plant. It looks innocent. This is going to be a 10 by 10 by 10 solid plant unless you trim it. Don't put this right next to your house. You'll hate it. You'll be dedicating yourself to pruning every other month because it'll take over the house. It'll take over garden sheds. It gets too big for a lot of places. Don't put it right next to the driveway. Give it some space because this gets big. It's fast growing. That'll like triple in size this year. Triple in size. Okay. This one is related to that. It's also a cotoneaster. This is a ground cover though. This one I like to use as a designer. Yeah, this one as a designer, you've got all that rock in the yard and it can look too sterile. So I use this frequently around the edges to soften that up, just so I have some living material kind of growing out, going, oh, look, this is such a happy place to be. Even the plants are growing into the rock landscape. They're just like being here. So this, or in between boulders, the rocks, it kind of flows in between. This is a ground cover cotoneasters. This is streams, but you've got coral beauty. We've got a lot of different ground covery type of evergreen cotoneasters. Again, it gets white flowers. You see a few red berries left on there. Again, they all get red berries. That's a cotoneaster trait, and none of them have thorns. So there you go. So this one you can kind of wrestle with. And that's what I thought I had. There we go. Indian hawthorn. We got to cover this. This is Indian hawthorn, or Raphaeoliptus is the Latin name. Indian hawthorn is easier to pronounce. It's an evergreen mounding plant. Has typically pink to apple blossom kind of flowers to it in spring. Very fragrant. So this one's full sun. I mean, just full sun, and hopefully it has more sun. The more sun you give this, the better the flowers, the better it does. Again, it's pretty robust. The leaves are very waxy, so they're very efficient on their water use. So this one is where we put, this is commercial setting kind of stuff. We'll put this out there because you just can't kill these. So Raphael, Indian hawthorn. We'll sell 3 or 4 varieties. We've got the big one. It's about this big, but mostly it's too big. Mostly they're about this hip-high to knee-high size. Just a nice mounding without any kind of care. This will grow and just kind of, not a lot of pruning or fuss. It's going to perform well for you. Okay. That would do great in containers. I've got them on both sides of my garage. Now, garages are ugly. You kind of want to soften up the sides. Big pots with those because they're evergreen. Then I'll put some flowers at the front edge. It looks good. Oh, deer. I'm sorry. They don't like deer. Deer, leave them alone. Javelina, personal experience, leave them alone. Rabbits, I'm pretty sure leave them alone too. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Okay, with that, I think we covered it. I wanted to cover 2 other things just because it's so appropriate. The timing is so right. One is fertilizing, and I just know we're getting the angst. We just feel like I should start watering things. Hold off. It's not quite time. It's almost time, but just not quite. Thought I'd cover those 2 things. Let's cover food first. Yeah. I don't have a hibiscus. Oh, yeah, camellia. Yeah, good. Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, good. Sorry, just missed it. So it's good eye. So someone in the back said, you missed one, Ken. Get your act together. This is camellia. Again, this is a winter bloomer. So you folks from California, you love your camellias. This is the only one that will grow up here. Most of them are tropical plants. They aren't going to winter over for us. This one does. Personal experience, it's been down to 0 degrees at my house. Still came through fine. It does do this. This is the actual flower. Does that. It's been budded up for all winter. And these have been in rotation bloom for the last month or so. So nothing's like a camellia. Naturally, it gets up about this high. I've had hedgerows where you just keep it down this beautiful little hedge around the screen and patio. This does great. Doesn't like the sun. It does better in more shaded. It'll take some sun, but it's going to bloom longer in more shaded areas. So I'd say no more than 6 hours of sun for this, and it'll thrive. So underneath the canopy of trees, that kind of the north side of the house, this is where this is going to shine. This is where you plant Japanese maples. These are all companion plants. This whole area of shaded lovers, I should have mentioned it when I mentioned the shade lovers. These are companion plants. Camellia. Latin name, camellia. There you go. There's no, some plants are like that. Lilac always gets me. Why do they call it lilac? The Latin name syringa. Where did that even come in? Where did that even come from? You got to be kidding me. Okay, food. Before the end of March, you need to fertilize the entire yard, from lawns to flowers to trees. I would say even the most important is your natives. If you built your house around those beautiful ponderosas, junipers, pinyon pines, take care of them because they're ancient and they cannot be replaced. A little bit of garden care goes a long ways for natives. Well, Ken, they've been growing there by themselves for 300 years. They're fine. Yes, that's true. But that's before you put your house there. And the roads changed all the water flow. And you've got heat island effect where their environment changed and they're at risk. And that's when you get scale and bark beetle, ips beetle, flathead borers, all these different things that can take them out. but just a little bit of care goes a long ways. I'm not really saying water them, but if you can fertilize them, it really makes a difference. And so what I'd recommend is, this is my number one. This we made 20 years ago. It's all-purpose plant food. I think you can see that over there. This is an organic, so it's got an earthy smell to it. When you open it up, it does smell like cottonseed meal and bird poop and stuff. Fairy dust. It's got it in there. Iron, sulfur. It's got all the stuff you'd want in there. But it's a blend for here. And I know that you're going to struggle with alkaline water. I just know it because all of us do. So we juice this with sulfur. We know that cottonseed meal is acidic. So we put that as a main source. You rosarians, you know, if you want real fragrant, big, showy flowers you're entering the fair, cottonseed meal, that's what you give them. Well, we just put that in here, and then we pelletize it so it spreads out easy. The beauty with organic foods is they're going to break down real slowly over a very long period of time. Whereas your synthetic foods, your petroleum-based products, they release like that. Like within 2-3 weeks, all that food's gone, even though it's pelletized. So this is going to break down much slower, which quite honestly, you have no food. There's nothing in your yard for plants. Literally, there's not one thing they like, except more clay, caliche, just yuck stuff. I was doing some work yesterday in the yard. I was pulling out brick out of my yard. Literally, bricks are in my soil that the contractor buried right there. Going, okay, that's what plants have. If you can help them, you're going to find you fertilize a little more often now here than you do in other parts of the country. Just because we don't have real soil, we don't have a soil layer. Yeah.
I had 5 acres and 150 pine trees and that stuff.
Oh, good. There we go. Good. That's good. Testimonial. I paid him $20 to say that. Not really. Not really. Yeah. So just for you folks online, I've got a fan of this product. He had 5 acres of pinyon pines, put this on there, and they are thriving. So, and his other question, follow-up was, pinyon pines, is it true they're one of the only plants that will absorb moisture through their needles? That is not true. And it is true. We actually don't know. There's 2 schools of thought. In fact, not just plants. I doubt if pinyon pines, any pine, absorbs moisture through their needles because they have such a waxy needle, and they've got resin. They're resin-based. They're oil-based. I doubt if water can get through there. It's really from the roots. So spraying it can't hurt, and it makes the gardener feel good. There we go. Sometimes it just makes it do, and it's working. Whatever you're doing, keep it going. That goes for a lot of plants. So the myth is if you spray them with water, the leaves will burn because of the sun. That is not true. I've never seen that. I've tried to see if it's true. It's not true. We don't know if plants absorb it. At the university level, we're trying to figure this out because that can change bushel crops per acre or whatever. We can't tell. I think what's happening is plants use foliage to gather up rain. It's their way of rain harvesting. They gather it to make sure it drips at their drip line. That's the name drip line. So it's a way to magnify or pull in more moisture that they're actually using from their roots. Now that's just me interpreting from a lot of smart people. I like buying people beers and coffees and stuff, and just, God, you're really smart. You got a PhD in cellular, whatever. They start some of these things. I'll take you out to coffee, and they like sharing stuff, and they don't even know yet. We don't know, but I think they're both good ways. Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry, he derailed me. So this is granular. So you sprinkle this around the drip line of the plants. So those outer branches. So if I'm the trunk, these are my outer branches. Don't focus right here. There's no roots there that absorb food. They're just big anchoring roots. They're big barky roots that hold the tree upright. The feeder roots are about halfway out here. Focus that food out where the outer drip line is, and that's going to encourage more growth for the plant. Brighter colors, greener, more flowers. Focus on that. A rookie mistake I find, I planted a tree and the tree well is still here. The tree is now 5 times the size, but they're still focused on their water and their food right around the tree well. Those roots have gone way past that now. So it might be time for irrigation tune-up and to move the irrigation out a little bit and then start focusing that food on that outer drip line. That goes for lilacs, forsythia. Just sprinkle it around. Now, you gardeners don't like that. So you are given permission to actually work and scrape it, try to bury it in. For me, I just chuck and go. I'm not gonna put any work into it. I just put it on the ground. It will go through the rock. It'll go through the fabric. It'll go through the mulch. It'll go through and I just walk away. I'm after efficiency. I'm usually doing it before church, before I got to be someplace. So just something I'm bored, I'm doing it then. So it does have a bit of an odor. So it is organic. So just kind of know that. Yeah. 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 Great question. Common question. So he's got the classic fabric, weed fabric. So, and then rock on top of that. What should you do? The fabric is made to keep weeds from coming up through it, but allows water and food to go down this way. It's a brilliant design. And so just put it on there, and the rain and your irrigation stuff, the snows will break it down, and it will liquefy and become available to the plants eventually. It's going to work its way through. If it bothers you, if you've got a real light colored rock, this is kind of a darker mocha color, you might scrape it just so it disappears or hose it down. I just throw it on. I just walk away. I've done my work. I'm done. It took me an hour for a half-acre place. I'm done. So don't stress over it. Fabric makes no difference to where this comes in. Yeah. So is this toxic for dogs? It is a fertilizer. It's got 7,4,4 nitrogen. Nitrogen, you can get too much phosphorus, too much nitrogen. A little bit's good, a lot's not good. I would say use some common sense. Don't leave it open in a bucket where they can just free feed, especially puppies. But just spread it out over the yard to get them their paws. I don't worry about that. It's going to take a huge quantity for them to poison themselves and do that. It isn't organic, so they're going to be, especially puppies. I mean, the brain the size of a walnut. Yeah, I mean, Labradors, all retrievers are basically stomachs wrapped in fur and love. So they're going to be interested. So kind of just some common sense. Make sure to get in the dog bowl. But generally, I'd say you're safer than petroleum products for sure. Much safer than turf builder, some of these other things. Yeah, did I answer that for you? Yeah. Yeah. So we have 2. So she's had organics before, and they were attracted to it because it had fish goo stuff in it. So we've got some of that too. So I make 2 fertilizers. I personally came up with the recipes. Fertilizers kind of like cookie recipes. You're always tweaking them, trying to get it right so the plants respond. That's what these are. So they look kind of local yokels because I couldn't afford a real bag. I just in plastic and I stick a label on it because that's what a little guy can do. We've got 2 744 all-purpose. That's the original. It's cottonseed meal, bird guano, but because I put iron and sulfur in it, I can't call it organic. I can only call it natural. Still safe. Then I came up with, because this trend towards organic, pure organic, that's a real thing. And I'm trying to cater to my folks. And I'm kind of an organic person too. And so I made the fruit and vegetable food, mainly because that's what the organic gardeners want. This is a 6,4,4,7, 6% nitrogen, 4% phosphorus, 4% potash, and 7% calcium. I know you're going to struggle with calcium in your yard, especially for tomatoes, cucumbers, squash will start to form. They'll turn yellow, fall off. Your apples will be too small. That's all calcium things. So calcium is what builds up the size of the fruit and the sweetness, the flavor. And so if I know that, I'm just going to put it into the mix. This is completely organic, lots of meals, of blood meals, of bone meals. It's got lots of meal. Dogs are more attracted to this one. So because it's all mealy, it smells like blood meal. What coyotes, everything. Your rabbit's going to be terrified because they smell blood out in the yard going, something just died. I don't want to go over there. So there's good and bad with it. Just this one to be I find my dogs like this one more than the other one, my personal dogs. And so this one I use in the front yard where the dogs aren't. And then this one that I use everywhere else in the backyard. There's two varieties. Makes sense. Now I said that's fertilizer. Put this on now, whenever you can, whenever you get time. Take a couple hours and just spread it over the whole yard. Everything. What about my new peonies? Just everything. Lawn, everything. Time lawn, everything gets that. In addition, I'm also adding soil sulfur this time of year. Soil sulfur lowers the pH and makes things more acidic. This is very acidic. And so I know your water's alkaline. It's all about your water. Your soil's going to take on whatever pH of your water is because you're watered so often. Well, if your water is at 7 to 8, I've even seen 9.4 coming out of a well, that's sterile. I mean, that's how you clean the kitchen counter. It's so alkaline. Things aren't going to grow in that kind of water. You're going to have to counteract that with soil sulfur. Lowers the pH and makes things more acidic. So if you're from the Midwest, this is new. You're used to putting hydrated lime onto the soil. That raises the pH because you're used to always having very acidic. Well, that's what happens when you've got 8 foot of topsoil and more leaves coming off to always add to the topsoil. We don't have that here. So here we've got very alkaline water. And the real quick history why that is, all the mountaintops we have, they're just volcano cores. So Thumb Butte, it's a volcano core. That's why it's so interesting. Glassford Hill, volcano core. San Francisco Peaks, volcano. All that ash has settled down into the valleys, and now we've got groundwater. We stuck a straw in the ground because we're all dealing with groundwater, and so that water is coming through all that ash. And ash is always very alkaline. That's why it's kind of a unique bubble just here in the Southwest. It's unique to us. This advice is for us and nowhere else, but it works. So soil sulfur is what I put in the spring, especially evergreens, things that bloom, lilacs, autumn sage, Russian sage, things that bloom a lot. This brings out the color. I do those two things now by the end of the month. Yeah. Yes. Everything. Everything. Really. You gardeners are so hard to convince, I tell you. My goodness. My name's Ken. I'm just a friend. We're neighbors talking over the back fence. This is what I do. You are welcome to do whatever you want to do. This is what I do. Yeah. This goes a long ways. Yeah, you'll see it looks like sulfur, little sulfur discs. Just goes around things. But it will bring out the color and the size of your flowers. You will have larger leaves. Everything is going to like it more acidic. Some things like it really acidic. Blueberries, camellias, hollies, hydrangeas. Those are obvious ones, but I find everyone likes it in the spring. Okay, this is what I do. Yes. $9.5. That's rough. Right. Yeah, so he's got 9.5. He's got a well, obviously. I've seen that. I've actually gardened in Chino Valley, had commercial greenhouses. The water coming out of the ground, really good groundwater, which is why we were growing there. 9.4. So I totally believe it. 10 is like steroid. You can vaporize, you can skin a chicken with 10. So it's basically the roots are in the ground going, I just want to wither and shrink here, is what happens. So you're more prone to yellowing. The leaves are going to be smaller. They'll stop blooming. They'll drop their fruits, that kind of stuff. That's indication of you're thinking it needs more iron. It's not iron. The pH went up too high, so you're seeing the plant react to that. So you lower your sulfur, and it'll make things more acidic. His question was, can I put it on more often? And I'm nervous saying yes. I think you could, but the rest of us couldn't. But I would say a soil test kit is critical. Before you do that, I would say test it and just see what the pH is. So pH, it's kind of, you deal with chemistry of the soil, much like a hot tub or a pool. You're always checking the pH, because if you get in a hot tub, wow, this is so great. I just enjoyed this evening. Oh my gosh, let's go inside. If the pH is off, you feel like your skin is going to crawl off. So you need to take a shower, all that kind of, that's the pH is off. The pH is right on, you don't have any of that. So the roots in the ground feel the same way, only they can't leave the hot tub. They're stuck there feeling like they need to take a shower. So that's, I would say, I do it once in the spring. That I find that's enough for most gardens. I will hit my gardens in the summer, and I'll remind me, I'll send off the fertilizer handout to you. It's a 4-step program to fertilizing. In the summer, I do the all-purpose food again, and I'll also hit it with the humac, which I didn't bring up here, so I wasn't going to talk about that as much. I mainly just wanted to say, fertilize now. It's the most important thing. Figure out what to do with. You kind of know what to do. Just do it now. Humac is humic acid, again, more acidic. That's what feeds the worms. It feeds the mycorrhizal, feeds all the stuff in the soil. So the plants go, wow, something's going on in the soil. This has got to be okay. I'm going to root out more here. So I'll do that. In the fall, I just do the all-purpose. That's it. Okay, that's just me. Let's see. I said I was going to do that and watering. So we got one more question, food. Then we'll cover watering, and we'll just skim over it real quick. Yeah.
At initial planting, do you fertilize?
Yeah, initial planting, absolutely. I use this. Again, it's an organic. It's all natural. Breaks down real slow. You can't overdo it. Be careful with petroleum-based chemical products. You can way overdo it with those. But this is very mild. So I'll put a handful of this, and every time I water that new plant, it's going to release a little food every time, which means I get more roots. It's all about getting roots as quickly as you can here. So whenever you plant, you need mulch, loosen the soil, you need food, and I make a root and grow. It's a compost tea. It helps it with transplant shock because it's going to freak out. It's going to actually, it doesn't know what you're doing to it. Out of its home, it's known its entire life, and throw it into your crummy yard, it's going to freak out. We call it transplant shock, but root and grow helps with that. Okay, watering. So I pass out business cards. Does anyone need more of those? This is how many business cards I go through actually I go through 2 boxes a year. It's crazy. But secretly, my goal is to have my logo in every irrigation box, and you have by county. So that's how I go up against the big boxes. So they're my nemesis. So Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, I'm going after them. They're coming after me. So I had to actually call the Depot manager, said, listen, I never want to see your face in my store again. If you try to hire my staff away from me again, I'm gonna be pissed. And so I've actually had to make that call, going, stop trying. That's a defensive thing. They try to hire your staff so you die slowly. Not here, because we treat our people better. Actually, average tenure, I think, here is 7 or 8 years. It might be 10 years now. They never leave. We're the place where employees put their roots down. So it's a good thing. On the back of this, you're seeing that you turn on your irrigation the summer growing season and the winter. Summer is April through October. That's our official growing season. You're going to see things really take off. So the roses are already starting to bud. In another week, they'll be leafed. They are starting to grow. Your daffodils are up, but the ground's pretty moist and the days are pretty cool. I don't know that you need to activate your irrigation in March, maybe the end of March or so. But really April through October, that's our true growing season. The lilacs are in full bloom. Forsythia are almost done blooming. Your roses are about heavily budded. I mean, things are growing April through October. So think in those terms. I find most folks new to drip irrigation or micro irrigation, they tend to overwater because they're thinking it's like a above ground bubbler system or something. Drip irrigation is very super efficient. It pushes that water down real deep. So it looks like there's only a wet spot here, but it actually forms a teardrop shape. So it has a real wet spot down below, so it doesn't dry out as quickly. And so really, you're probably watering most of your established plants once a week. Trees, shrubs, roses, vines, honeysuckles, all these things we were talking about here. Once a week's pretty good. Brand new things, if you have a brand new house, maybe it's twice a week. Just because the roots, you're still in that bucket, the roots aren't out far enough yet. It takes a season for the roots to go, boom. Once the roots are out, you can back it off to once a week. Twice a week for brand new stuff. That's tree shrubs. That's the big stuff. Now, lawns, tomatoes, man, sure, little tiny flowering things. The root structure is real small. There you have to do it more often, obviously, because the roots are they aren't that deep. So tree roots will go down 2-3 feet. Pansies are only like 6 inches. So there you might have to water more often. Your containers, maybe a little more often. So that's one. I would say if in doubt, I love pansies because they are big crybabies. They get cold, they lay down. If they get dry, they're just real drama queens. Just, oh my gosh. I like to plant pansies, and when they start to lay down, oh, I went 4 days before I needed to water. That's my cycle, 4 days. I water every 4 days. Pansies, there's always a canary. There's always one of those plants that can tell you, if you're reading it, if you're watching, they'll kind of tell you, I'm dry here. And they'll just kind of weep and tell you, I'm ready. So look at that. So flowers may be a little bit different. So you'll notice in the winter we are watering because it is dry here. We've only had really one storm this entire winter. Really only one that had any moisture. That was that one 10 days ago. Before that, we'd had a wisp of snow, it threatened, it was cold, but it didn't actually provide any real moisture. So in the winter, as you see snow, the snow will penetrate about the same amount as you see on the top of the ground. That's about how far it penetrates into the ground. So if you look at that, so if you've only got this much moist snow on the ground, you're going, oh, it snowed, I don't have to water. It only went in the ground this much. Wasn't very much, wasn't enough. So you still need to supplement with that. If you don't water in the winter, we get what's called winter kill, especially with your evergreens, these guys. That's the reason I wanted to bring up watering. It's important to water your evergreens. Red tip photinias, cotoneasters, not so much your natives, but really your ornamental things you've planted out there in the yard. You do want to water those twice a month. How much should you water when you water? It's the same every time. Never change. In June, if it takes you watering that system for an hour and a half to get the water deep enough so the plants are hardy enough to get through the next week before the heat takes it, that's your cycle. That's how long you have to water every time. Now all you're playing with is variable. How many days can I go in between watering? So in the winter, you can go 14 days, a couple times a month. In the growing season, April through October, it might be only 7 days. If you got a whole bunch of brand new plantings, you're a rose collector, you've got 20 roses you just planted. Thank you very much for doing that. But you might have to water every 4 or 5 days. Cycle might be a little for this year. Next year, you can probably back that off to every 7 days. So you're playing with that variable, but you're watering the same amount every time. That make it a lot easier to figure out how much do I need to water. Okay, does that make sense? So again, if you didn't get a card, they're up here. And on the back, on the front of my card, a very good photo likeness of myself. But on the back, so what we really want you to have, that's a water guide. Okay, yeah. When do you prune roses? March. Now, you can go now. I'd say after Wednesday. There's a little cold front coming through. It looks like 20 degrees or so. I don't know. I never believed the weatherman. They said that last storm was supposed to have like 3 to 5 inches. We sat here with like over a foot. It took us 3 days to dig out of here. So still, anyway, that's March. I'd do it after next Wednesday. You're probably good to go. So the true time to prune roses specifically is in the month of March. So we're past that cold front. We're done with cold in March. It will be frosty. We can still see snow, but that bitter, like eat through you cold, roses don't like that. That's done. We generally keep the structure up of roses through winter, and then once we think the cold's over, we cut them back to that knee-high, 3 to 5 canes. We'll really whack on them. So yeah, great questions. Anything else? Yep. Oh, say it again. He's got a total blank slate of his land. He's just starting the landscape. Yeah, so what to do before the landscapers land like the Marines. They're trying to get in, they're trying to get out to the next one. What should you do to get ready? I don't know that you have to do anything. They're going to take those measurements. You'd almost be in their way. So, I mean, if you want to salvage something, because they're going to have bobcats, all kinds of stuff coming in, moving stuff around. I say the main thing to watch that I've heard, I've seen over and over, if you've got some mature natives around, maybe stake out where they can't roam around the root structure of the natives. because I've seen equipment go over the native's root structure, and it affects the tree growth later, and it's always like 18 to 24 months later. It's never right away, but you can tell, oh my gosh, it's like that tractor, the backhoe dug too much. If we could have kept that dump truck from running over that part of compacting that part of the soil, it would have helped that plant. So if you got a bunch of natives, maybe look at that. It'd be the only real thing I could think of. If you could help identify at Blue Stake, they should do that if they're professionals. Blue Stake is a free service. They come and measure where your gas lines, your water lines. You might just help them. Hey, I Blue Stake this for you, just to make sure they don't take out your gas sewer lines and stuff. It's one thing that I've done in the past, but if it's a reputable company, they should be okay with that. Just because they say they're a landscaper does not mean they're reputable, though. It's just kind of like, I'm embarrassed sometimes for my industry. What else? Y'all doing okay? We learned a couple things. So you can, any of these you can plant right now. You're good to go. Yeah. You have issues? Me too. Yeah. So she's got heavy clay, it sounds like, where she tends to overwater. Yeah, by hills, that's rough. Yeah. Not only heavy clay, you've got caliche layers up there. That's wild. So a caliche layer is it's a chalky looking band of soil. It's basically concrete. And so water will not penetrate it. It won't go through it. And so if we are digging something, we're planting something, we run into that, we'll tend to do what we call a chimney. We'll fracture a piece of that hole just so once it's broken, the water will seep through and gravity will add drainage. That's one thing I can tell you. This is the reason we have so many raised beds, because the soil was so bad. We just said, I'm abandoning that idea of growing in the ground. I've killed so many plants in my yard. This is like experience I'm sharing with you. It's not like I'm trying to sell you something. I don't want you to make less mistakes. So I want to make less money off of you, but I want more success. So you just feel good about it. So you share it with your neighbors. That's a good formula. And so I've killed a lot because I'm up in that kind of just the other ridge line from Yavapai Hills. It's rough. And I'm a north-facing slope. North does not dry out. It's beautiful in the summer. You sit out there and it's just cool. I look over the dells, watch the sunset. It's beautiful. But I tend to kill a lot because the soil doesn't drain. So what I did is I just took big blocks. I went down to Yavapai block. I got their biggest. They make a retaining block. And I just have these big, I probably have, I don't know, 8 or 10 of them. I've got a bunch of them all the way down the hill. And so I just abandoned growing stuff, and I am now growing in raised beds, basically. Even the front yard, I've got 2 raised beds, huge. The length of the property, raised beds, because I just couldn't grow things up there. It was so hard. I was tired of struggling. I'm also a gardener, and I know it's all about the soil. If I get the soil right, I can grow anything. If I get the soil wrong, I struggle with everything. So it may be you need more containers, or raised beds, or just amend heavily. And when you do plant in Yavapai Hills, for sure, that whole 69 corridor, plant at soil level or even a little above. It's going to be a game changer, especially if you're doing things like this manzanita. This will die in Yavapai Hills. I know there's some wild up there, but if you're planting it and it's in heavy clay soil, it's not going to like that. So I would leave like 2-3 inches of the root out of the ground and then mound the soil up, feather it, so that I had at least this much of the roots could breathe, no matter how much the monsoons were happening. At least that much could breathe, and that's the game changer. Put your drip on top. Don't put it on a drip system. Put your water well around that, water by hand when you remember to water it. That's how you'll do some of these things, okay? I've killed 5 of these in my backyard just because of heavy clay until I went to raised beds, and then they started living because I can now effectively affect the drainage. Yeah.
Ken, I don't know if it was 2 years or 3 years ago, you had a video of your yard.
Yeah.
And we had just moved here, and it was very helpful.
Yeah.
Helping us lay out our landscape.
Good. So she said during the pandemic, we said, no one can get out. What can I do that's special for my poor folks? And so I just took a backyard. Hey, here's a backyard tour. I'll show you my backyard. And so he said that was very helpful. So if you're part of our garden club and you're getting any kind of information from us, social posts on Facebook, Instagram, half of those are from my yard. Just so you know, it's not like I'm getting creative. I got a phone because that's pretty. Click, hey, they would be interested with that. So you see a lot of that. A lot of videos that we shoot. It's my backyard because it's just easy. Or it's here at the nursery. So if it looks real good, I'll shoot a picture here, just because that's I don't have the $1 million ad budget that the box stores do, but I got personality and I got a phone. So that's my counter to their what they do. Okay. But thank you very much. Thank you for your service. Yeah. I have an entire class on fruit trees. It's too short a time now left, but fruit trees will grow. As soon as the class is over, I'm going to raise this curtain up. We just had a fruit tree delivery show up. They're not even untied yet. It was right before the class. That's what I was doing. Lots of cocktail trees. So grafted 5 types of apples, 3 types of pears, 2 types of cherries, all in one tree. Lots of those. And then all your standards. But apples, pears, cherries, apricots, nectarines, plums, grapes, berries, blackberries, raspberries especially, do great here. Figs, pomegranates will do great here. So all those grow. You cannot grow citrus. You just give up on avocados. You're not in California anymore. You can't grow those. The winter's too cold on them. The winter's what takes them out. So the citrus will go down to mid-20s, then they vaporize. We always go down to teens, if not single digits, every year, no matter where you're at in this central part of Arizona. It's just too cold. Okay, so that's what I can give you on this short time. But so I'll pop this wall out in just a second. You can take a look. There's all these trees in here are all fruit trees. We just haven't had time to put them in the racks. We're being overwhelmed with plant deliveries. So spring open house, personal invite, and then I'll let you go. March 15, 16, 17. That's a week of spring. It will be 62 years in business. Yeah, thank you very much. My father-in-law started the business back in 1962. So we celebrate every year. This is the same date in March. We tend to celebrate. So every year we have a spring open house. We bring our growers in from the fields. They actually show up here from all over the Southwest, and they just share stuff. They bring in their new plants. These guys are creators of life. They're very proud of it. They've got more patents than most of us will ever see in a lifetime. They've got a dozen this year. And they come and they show off because they're so proud of it. This is my baby I made. This is a patented manzanita. He goes, oh, let me tell you where I found this. Again, and why it's so great. How we went through 10 others and we settled on this one, and they're sharing those stories. It's fascinating. They don't get out of the greenhouse very much. So when they get people like this, they're going, oh, I get to talk. Or they're terrified. I never know. So, or they just don't know how to speak. Kind of have to coach them a little bit. I'll get radio interviews. I do a radio show every week. We'll try to interview because you don't get that talent here that often. Try to get them in just to share that in the can kind of stuff. Yeah, so that's 15, 16, 17. I'm sure you'll get a notice on that. Join us. It's kind of a fun. That'll be the class on Saturday. I'm just going to give the microphone to the growers, and we'll see where it goes. I never quite know, but they're pretty interesting people. Oh, thank you very much. It's my birthday today. There you go. Yeah, you all can sing. There we go. Yeah, not really. It's my birthday today, so it's got a friend in the back. I staged a friend in the back, so I'll expect my cupcakes later. No, that's okay. I'm just reliving 59, 2 years in a row now. So anyway, kind of, yeah. With that, I'll let you go. I'll let you clap and kind of say thank you very much. I'll hang out as long as you want.